A U.S. emissions rule aimed at speeding up the nation's shift to electric vehicles might be hitting a speed bump as the government considers relaxing some of the rules. How the proposed changes could impact the nation's climate goals. Plus, the U.S. government appears to be on track to make a big clean energy purchase as the administration strives to cut emissions in all federal buildings. We'll have more on what they're doing. And one major oil company is looking to develop and test some new environmentally friendly technology, why some industry analysts are calling the move a potential game changer. Hello and welcome to EarthX News, where we focus on sustainability and the environment. I'm Christina Thompson. This week, we're focusing on the realities surrounding the green energy transition and the economic and logistical challenges that many governments and businesses are facing as they try to meet those climate goals. We kick things off here in the United States. First Energy Corp abandoned their 2030 target for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but they are keeping that 2050 goal of becoming carbon neutral. They say it's just too challenging to replace their coal plants in time for the 2030 deadline. According to a report by the Sierra Club, most utilities are failing to make significant progress towards long-term carbon neutrality targets. It's an issue becoming all too common. There's too much demand and not enough clean energy solutions to offset the production of coal plants. For First Energy, the coal-fired Fort Martin and Harrison power plants in West Virginia are needed to supply enough electricity across the area. A changing market also forecasts these facilities to be more profitable than historically projected. Both plants are slated to shut down in 2035 and 2040. A U.S. plan to invest up to $1.2 billion in a promising new carbon capture technology is under fire. The innovation, called direct air capture, is designed to remove carbon pollution from the atmosphere. The technology is compared to giant vacuums sucking carbon from the sky, but critics are worried that it could also prolong the lifespan of fossil fuel companies, arguing that investing in renewables and energy efficiency would be more effective use of funds. Vicki Hollub, the CEO of Warren Buffett-backed Occidental Petroleum Corp., one of the largest beneficiaries of the grant, is doing little to dispel those fears. She was quoted as saying, "If it's produced in the way that I'm talking about, there's no reason not to produce oil and gas forever." Carbon dioxide has been used by oil companies for decades to extract more oil out of the aging, declining oil wells. This means that companies can not only cash in by winning government grants or by charging businesses for the right to offset their carbon dioxide emissions, but also can make money from taking the extracted CO2 to produce more oil. Regardless, direct air capture presents a potential compromise in the transition from fossil fuels to renewables, allowing oil production to continue while working towards a net zero future. The Biden administration plans to relax its rules on tailpipe emissions, which were designed to get Americans to move from gas-powered cars to electric vehicles. Automakers and the United Auto Workers Union asked President Biden to scale back his proposed push for EV sales. They argued electric vehicles are still too expensive for the average American and that more charging stations are needed for the country to make this shift. Last April, the Environmental Protection Agency announced they wanted automakers to aim for 60% of their new vehicle production to be EV by 2030 and 67% by 2032. The revisions make it so the required EV production accounts for less than 60% by 2030. The final revisions should be made available to the public next month. The U.S. government is preparing for what could become its largest ever purchase of carbon-free electricity as it looks to deliver on the administration's goals to reduce the carbon footprint of federal agencies. The General Services Administration and Defense Department are looking for contractors who can offer the clean electricity for agency facilities throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the Midwest by 2030. The agencies expect to seek about 2.7 million megawatt hours of carbon-free power per year, which the GSA says is equivalent to powering about 250,000 homes for a year. Joining us now to discuss is policy analyst Tom Borelli. Tom, thanks for coming in.
Hey, Christina, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
So GSA Administrator Robin Carnahan praised the initiative, saying in part, quote, "This will mark a key milestone as we continue to incentivize more production and delivery of clean energy." She went on to say that they're using the government's buying power to spur demand for clean, carbon pollution-free electricity, and also that they're partnering with the industry to drive towards the triple win of good jobs, lower costs of taxpayers, and a healthier planet for future generations. Do you agree with this?
Well, Christina, first let's talk about the objective. I think she described it perfectly from the government perspective. What they're trying to do is spur the development of renewable energy to meet President Biden's climate change plans and reduce carbon dioxide emissions. And they're doing that by trying to drive demand, trying to have people develop renewable energy at a guaranteed price so that hopefully they'll make more and there will also be, hopefully, innovation. So that's what they're trying to do. There's also the risk of the change in government. So those who invested could actually, have a loss from thinking they had a guaranteed government market, but then change of government, there is no guaranteed change of renewable energy or demand.
Right. And there's a lot of praise around this, but you mentioned there's also some reality checks when it comes to the clean energy transition. So I'm wondering if you can expand on that topic of there being some economic and logistical challenges that the U.S. could face as the country tries to meet this climate goal.
Well, great question, Christina. Also, renewable energy is a great idea, but there's significant technological challenges, especially when it comes to wind and solar. First of all, they're intermittent develop a program of energy. When the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, there's no energy, and yet we don't have battery technology to store the energy when there is wind and when there is sun. So that is a big risk there. Plus, California has had a renewable energy mandate for their electricity, and their electricity prices have gone up significantly, and they've also run into problems such as running out of power when it gets really warm there. So it can be technological problems can challenge, this whole idea.
What would be some of the solutions to those challenges to maybe when the sun's not shining? Is there a way to still be able to get this renewable energy, or is there a way to drive the costs down?
Well, that's what they're hoping. They're hoping by giving a guaranteed demand for a product that companies will innovate. But there's a problem with some of the basic physics with respect to taking energy from the sun and converting it to electricity. So we should wait, in my view, rather than force until basic innovation comes along and are able to develop these technologies, if they're able to.
Right, but we can't wait too long, right? Because the Biden administration has this 2030 goal, which is only 6 years away. So how aggressive does the U.S. have to be with these initiatives in order to meet that demanding goal?
Well, that's really the heart of the problem. Again, from my philosophical perspective, the government shouldn't be mandating a lot of things. If anything, it should be up to the individual consumer to decide what kind of car they want to buy, how that car gets powered, if they want to choose to buy renewable energy or not. But what the Biden administration is doing and the Obama administration have basically the same philosophy. It's a command and control energy policy where they're going to tell people how to get their power, regardless of cost or technological challenges. So that's the basic philosophical difference. And when you have a mandate, we need to do this by X date, then you need to follow that with trying to encourage, grid operators to use renewable energy. But the technology might not be there, so they possibly, in my view, likely will hit that wall.
All right, well, we'll have to see. Tom Borelli, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Christina.
Turning now to international news. In South Africa, a national energy plan is facing some pushback. The country's Presidential Climate Commission has criticized the energy ministry over what officials claim is an inadequate plan to address the power supply crisis, air quality issues, and climate change. The ministry's proposal, called the Integrated Resource Plan, has been specifically scrutinized for its reliance on coal to produce electricity, despite calls for transition to greener alternatives. Renewable energy advocates are also concerned that the IRP's target of 100 gigawatts of power generation capacity by 2050 it's not ambitious enough. South Africa, a major greenhouse gas emitter, faces severe air pollution due to coal-fired power plants and heavy industry. A new report finds the Amazon rainforest could be headed towards large-scale transformations. The study, published in the science journal Nature, revealed that up to half of the world's largest rainforest could be exposed to extreme droughts, deforestation, and fires that may lead to major ecological tipping points within the next 25 years. Researchers say they analyzed 5 key drivers of water stress in the Amazon, ranging from global warming to annual rainfall, and derived that some of the ecological changes we could see include a shift into a white sand savanna, a degraded open canopy, and a degraded forest. Scientists say this could lead to the large-scale collapse of a biome that absorbs billions of tons of carbon while largely weathering changes in climate. The Amazon rainforest also houses at least 10% of the world's biodiversity. The study's authors say around 20% of the Amazon has already been deforested, and a further 6% is highly degraded. Last year, the leaders of the 8 Amazon basin countries committed to work together to protect the rainforest, but they stopped short of agreeing to end deforestation. A global oil company is testing out some new eco-friendly tech in the Netherlands. ExxonMobil has launched a pilot project in Rotterdam in collaboration with Fuel Cell Energy, aiming to convert air pollution into energy using carbon capture technology. The project seeks to capture carbon dioxide emissions from industrial sources and convert them into low-carbon power, heat, and hydrogen. The companies believe the project will serve as a proving ground for carbonate fuel cell tech, and if it works, the breakthrough technology could significantly reduce CO2 emissions from key industries. Coming up, a global weather pattern could be making a comeback. We'll tell you about NOAA's latest alert and its potential impact on the planet. Stay tuned. A new study focused on a crucial system of ocean currents is making some waves. A recent report published in the peer-reviewed journal Science Advances finds the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Current, or AMOC for short, may be on course to collapse. Additionally, the resulting climate impacts could be worse than expected, according to the report. The key water system carries warm and cold water between the poles and acts a bit like a global thermostat to keep parts of the planet from overheating. Now, according to the study, the potential tipping point or breakdown of this current could result in a catastrophic shift in global temperatures. Scientists say the disruption of the AMOC and its subsequent climate impacts could freeze Europe, scorch the tropics, and increase sea level rise in the North Atlantic. Despite the warning from scientists, researchers say the study does not give a time frame for a potential collapse and that much more research is needed. For hurricane forecasters and those who predict global climate trends, all eyes will be on the tropical Pacific during the next few months. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recently issued a La Niña watch, which scientists say is an indicator that the stronger El Niño weather pattern might be past its peak and heading for the exits. But the potential shift in weather patterns is sparking concerns, as some scientists warn the atmospheric shakeup could spark a cascade of extreme weather and climate impacts around the globe. Joining us now to discuss is NOAA climate scientist Tom DiLiberto. Tom, thanks for coming in. We appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me.
So what exactly does this watch mean, and why is this such a big deal?
So this watch basically means that in the next 6 months, conditions are favorable for La Nina to form. And that may be a bit weird to hear because we're still actually currently in an El Nino, but all signs point to this El Nino ending within the next several months. And then by the time we get into the springtime, into the summertime, the chances for La Nina really start to ramp up.
So where do we see these shifts happening, and why are they reflective of the diminishing El Nino?
So both El Nino and La Nina take place across the tropical Pacific Ocean. El Nino basically means that the waters in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean are warmer than average, and La Nina is the opposite, cooler than average. And right now, the waters are still warmer than average, reflecting the fact that we've been in a strong El Nino now for the better part of the last 5 or 6 months. However, just underneath the surface in the Pacific Ocean is a large area of colder than average water that's slowly making its way to the surface. And that's a telltale sign that this El Nino is likely coming to an end shortly, but also could flip over into a La Nina later on this year.
I feel like we've seen so many extreme weather events, even in just the past few years. I mean, more fires, more flooding. We've seen hotter temperatures. What are some of the extreme weather events that this sort of new weather pattern, this shift could trigger?
Sure. So El Nino and La Nina can cause all sorts of different weather and climate extremes happening across the planet. One big thing with La Nina compared to El Nino is that La Ninas tend to lead to there being an increase in hurricanes across the Atlantic Ocean, which is a big concern, especially considering that this La Nina is expected to form or favored to form during the summertime. Meanwhile, for the United States, generally, we tend to see our largest impacts from El Nino and La Nina during the wintertime. La Nina tends to lead to there being drier than average conditions across the southern tier of the United States, which is an opposite of El Nino, which usually leads to there being an increase in precipitation across the southern tier of the United States, which we've certainly seen this year, especially across California, where we've seen incredibly heavy rainfall leading to mudslides and all sorts of damages.
You just touched on hurricane season. So many people are so concerned when this season comes around. Would it mean that there's a greater chance of hurricanes during hurricane season?
So if you're someone who does not want to see a lot of hurricanes this year in the Atlantic, you would also not want to see a La Nina form in the Pacific Ocean. La Ninas are normally tied to basically making conditions easier for hurricanes to form. So the fact that we're favoring La Nina forming this summer is not good news for a quieter season across the Atlantic.
We've talked a lot about extreme weather, a lot of scary things. Let's switch gears, talk about something a little bit more fun. I know NOAA is set to launch its first ever cartoon series called Teak and Tom Explore the World. Can you tell us a little bit about this project, what sparked it, and the importance of developing a series like this?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Tom from Teak and Tom, and I co-wrote and star in NOAA's first ever climate cartoon. We're expecting to release it on Earth Day this year. It's a 5-part series taking a look at basically everything that makes Earth work, how our oceans and atmosphere interact with each other to create the weather and climate that we experience. And the one thing that teachers always tell us is that they want more material talking about just what makes the world tick. And as opposed to just doing something like a voiceover narration, we thought, why not be a little bit different? And for the first time ever, we're creating a cartoon series that's going to take a look at all the latest science, but also jumping into all the latest technology that we use to monitor this great planet.
I love it. I'm looking at the graphics right now. They look so cool. It looks like such a fun show. Tom, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, calls are growing to protect the planet's migratory animals after a new UN study reveals a shocking trend. Stay tuned. We have more on that story when we return. A new study from the United Nations reveals a disturbing trend among the world's migratory animals. Alex Salvi has more.
Nearly half of the planet's migratory animals are at severe risk. The first report of its kind details the state of the world's migratory species and aims to alert the globe about the dire situation.
The key message is that there has been a drastic decline in the conservation status of migratory species since 1970. These species are landing in one country and finding that they've nowhere to live anymore.
44% of animals that rely on migration for survival are in decline. 1/5 of the species investigated are threatened with extinction, but the numbers are much more alarming in the ocean, where 97% of all fish species studied face the same threat to their survival. The elimination of any of these animals could have dire consequences.
These species live in habitats where the habitats are very important in terms of providing us with clean water, clean air, food, coastal and other littoral protection, and so on. And the habitats can't provide these ecosystem services if we don't look after the animals that are part of them. Forests aren't just about trees. Wetlands aren't just about reeds and grasses. It's very much about the whole ecosystem and the animals that live in them.
The snow leopard is native to Pakistan, but it lives and hunts in the mountains across northern and central Asia crossing the borders of 12 countries, including China, India, and Russia. It's one of the species under threat, but researchers say that knowing the habits of migratory animals allows them to be saved before it's too late.
The trends, again, are going in the right direction. There's been a recent survey, and the numbers are up. Climate change, of course, is going to be a risk because of the habitats where the leopard lives, high montane areas, and we're going to be losing a lot of the habitat.
The pressures on migratory animals aren't confined to any specific area. Climate change, human exploitation, and the breakdown of healthy ecosystems and habitats all play a role in the crisis across the world. It's for this reason this broad problem requires a collective response.
So these are basically species where countries share a responsibility to manage them for conservation. It's no use having one country doing everything it should do if the species are migrating to another country for part of their life cycle where they're being trashed.
Some of the existing programs are having success, but knowing that time and Mother Nature is against them, they know that other species may not be so fortunate unless drastic action is taken. For EarthX, I'm Alex Salvi.
Alex Salvi, thank you. And before we leave you, a joyous moment at the Chester Zoo in England. Conservationists at the facility are celebrating after the birth of a baby chimpanzee. Zoo officials shared video of the newborn male primate cradled close to his mother, Alice, in early February. Staffers say the little guy was born on December 29th in front of astonished visitors and has been receiving care from his mother along with other female members of the 21-strong chimpanzee troop. Veterinarians say despite being the center of attention, Alice and her baby are finding some quiet time to bond, and they can be seen cuddling up together. This new arrival is especially good news because chimpanzees are critically endangered. They are threatened by deforestation, poaching, and the illegal wildlife trade. That's it for this edition of EarthX News. Please join us again next week. I'm Christina Thompson.